Save it till Thursday, folks, okay? Can't believe you guys. Just joking. I want some snacks. See, my dad makes this Thanksgiving dish, candied yams, sweet potato. What are those even called? They're candied yams? That's the best invention ever. Everyone acts like they don't like those. You like them. You like them. Yeah, Jared, yeah, we'll admit it. We're not above it. I mean, it's like eating two meals in one. You get like savory and something with marshmallows and sugar and all kinds of spices. I mean, we should just put all of the Thanksgiving food ingredients in a blender and blend it up, and then it does total efficiency. You with me, Sean? Like you can just sit down and drink your Thanksgiving shake together. Yeah. You save all kinds of time. I mean, no? Hey, okay. I guess if you don't want to, Danny, then we won't. Okay. So, I've been thinking a lot about kitchen appliances lately. You guys are like, that sounds boring. You'll find out in a second why that's the case, but there's a hierarchy. There really is a hierarchy built into kitchen appliances. Now, I've noticed this recently. I know some of you in this room have spent like $5,000 on a coffee maker. That's the case. Like, when you think about it, when you're in the kitchen, the most expensive thing that you spend money on is typically the thing that you actually don't really need to survive, right? Coffee. It's good, it's delicious, I love coffee, but people will buy a full-on like Starbucks espresso machine in their kitchen. I mean, any of you like that right now? You don't want to admit it? You have that on the counter, right? It's like priority number one is coffee. After that, it's the fridge, because there's snackies in there. And the refrigerators are getting out of hand. I went to someone's house recently, and they have a big, giant, like, LED screen built into the fridge on the outside. So normally, most of us walk up to the fridge when we don't have anything else to do and open it to look inside. Even if you're not hungry, even if it's not mealtime, it's just what you do if you're Merkin. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, I have 12 spare seconds. I need to open the fridge and see what's in there. Oh, nothing, like usual. But they have built a screen into it, so now you don't actually have to open the door on the fridge. You could just knock twice on this screen, and there's a camera inside that shows you what's in there. And not only that, if it's connected to your Wi-Fi, you can be shopping in a convenience store and sign into your fridge, and you can look through the camera so you can do your shopping from the, like, that's next level. That is like serious. I mean, so in order of hierarchy, you have your coffee maker, because we all need that delicious, expensive coffee in the morning. Then you got your fridge, and then there's all these other appliances, and you know what's way down on the bottom of the list? Dishwasher. Super boring, right? Like, there's no snackies in there. There's no coffee, unless you brew your coffee in a really weird way. Right? It's so boring. Like, no one in my house has ever been like, I'm going to build a shrine to the dishwasher. I am so thankful for this device. No one is on bended knee in my house, at least, like, God, thank you for inventing dishwashers. Until it breaks. Yeah, someone has experienced this before, huh? It's like this boring cube that sits under the counter, and it just doesn't really do much of anything. Some of you ladies are like, yes, it does. It does a lot. But you don't really notice it. You don't prize it. You're not like, yeah, I'm going to go out and buy a new dishwasher today. You're like, ugh, I have to buy a new dishwasher, until it stops working. And it stopped working in my house about a month ago. And this is why I've been thinking about kitchen appliances, because it's a lot different to say to your children, hey, why don't you go wash the dishes by hand, than it is to say, why don't you load the dishwasher, right? And you have teens, you have young kids, and it's like, go wash the dishes, and they're like, ew, sick, I have to touch that? That's disgusting. Like, there's all this disgusting food and leftovers, and you're like, yeah, that's how we did it when we were kids. I finally get to say that. Yeah. Used to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow, and we didn't have color televisions and the internet and all of that kind of stuff. I get to finally say that. But it's so funny, because you don't recognize what you have until it's gone. We're talking about thankfulness. We're talking about gratitude. We're talking about recognizing what we have as people, especially as modern day Americans. We're in this series called Thanks Living. I need a chuckle for that one because a little play on words. We're talking about living in this state of thankfulness and of gratitude. And here's the point I'm trying to make. Gratitude, thankfulness, it is a matter of perspective. It's the way that you look at things. You don't care about a dishwasher until it breaks. And then you care a lot. And guess what? I fixed it. Oh, sorry. Just walking around like a total swag daddy up here. Bill, where's he at? He used to work on appliances. I fixed it, and my family has been singing my praises. There he is, yeah. You know how it is. One day it's like, it's a dishwasher, who cares? Then it breaks. When you fix it, it's like, Dad, I have never respected you more. You are so wise. I'm too cheap to buy a new one, so I have to figure out a way to fix it. When it's gone, you recognize how thankful you are for it. We don't always see clearly enough to be grateful and thankful for what we have. Do you know how I know this? How many of you wake up in the morning and you think, God, thank you so much for clean drinking water? You know what the number one killer of children under 5 is? Dirty drinking water. Dysentery. They dehydrate because they get some bug. The water from our toilets is probably cleaner than most third world countries' water supply. How many of us think about that? How many of us thank God for that just because we have a clean water system? How many of us wake up and we're like, God, I am so grateful that the electricity turned on today. It actually worked. In lots of different places in the world, you either don't have electricity or it's so faulty and intermittent that you don't know when it's going to work. How many of you wake up in the morning and thank God for our justice system? It has flaws, it does, but those flaws are a lot more slight than they are at other places in the world. You can't just be locked away in prison at a whim. You can't be executed. I mean, what? Yeah, well, we're not going to go there. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it is a darn sight better than a lot of other places. And that's the thing, it's perspective. Right. It's perspective where it's relative to what the other options are. And that's what we tend to forget. Usually, we only orient our sense of thankfulness or our gratitude on accident. And we do so by considering those things that we don't have. Where am I right now? What do I have? Oh, I don't have this thing. I don't have this income. I don't have whatever. And once I have that, I'll be happy. But that is there's no winning that race. That is a lifelong cycle because you always start right where you are. So someone who has more than you, they are also possibly ungrateful because they want more than they have, not more than you have. And so gratitude, thankfulness it's a perspective issue. You have to be able to see yourself and your situation rightly. And the problem is, like we talked about last week, is we forget. We're better at noticing our lack and what's wrong and what we don't have than we are at celebrating what we do have and what's good. It's the human condition. It's just oftentimes the way that we see things. So, what is the remedy to ungratefulness? What is the remedy to this idea? 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, this is Paul speaking. And you're going to hate this. Just telling you right now. Verse 16, rejoice always. You know what rejoice means? Be exceedingly joyful. That's a good verse for Joy Church. Be exceedingly, excessively, annoyingly joyful. Make sure people hate you because you're so joyful. Make sure that people avoid you because you're smiling and you're happy and you're laughing and you're content all the time. That's how joyful you should be. Rejoice always. It'd be so much easier if he was like, rejoice if everything's going well. Rejoice if your wife's not mad at you. Rejoice, whatever it happens to be, rejoice then. It says rejoice always. And believe me, this is going to get worse. Okay, that's just the beginning. Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Don't stop praying, ever. Not once. Are you praying right now? No, I'm just joking. Be in a constant attitude of prayer. Be in a constant attitude of relationship with God. Give thanks. Be thankful. Be grateful in all circumstances. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. God, what is your will? Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances, even the bad ones. Paul, you don't understand my circumstances. Paul, you don't get what I'm going through. About to get Bible slapped right here. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. This is Paul talking about himself. Starting in verse 23. With far greater labors. He's talking about what he's gone through in his circumstances. And then he writes this letter. Far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes, less 1, meaning 39 times he gets whipped. 5 times he got that. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. This is not Josephine County stoned. This is ancient Israel stoned. They throw stones at you, okay? Some of you are like, oh, I've suffered those circumstances right before I came in, actually. No, he's talking about actually people attempting to kill him or hurt him, right? Once I was stoned, 3 times I was shipwrecked. Remember that one, shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea, on frequent journeys, in danger from rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. Those are Paul's circumstances, and he wrote, rejoice always. Give thanks in all circumstances. I'm telling you, I know most of you, I know some of you have gone through some hard things. I don't think anyone here has experienced that. Some of you have only been beat with rods twice. Paul got it 3 times. Like, look at that list. That is like ridiculous. And he's the guy who wrote, rejoice always, give thanks in all circumstances. This guy is qualified to say that.
Right.
Believe it or not, it sounds a little bit like the beginning of our country. In honor of Thanksgiving, I want to talk just quickly, list a couple of items that the original settlers went through on their journey to find a better place to live. The founding, the beginning of our nation. So, the Church of England was fairly oppressive. They inherited a lot of cues from the Roman Catholic Church. And when the Reformation burst onto the scene and people said, you know what, I'm going to be an evangelical Christian. I'm not going to allow the Church of England to tell me everything about how I have to conduct my life. They decided, we're going to move to the Netherlands. We're going to move out of the country of England because there's so much oppression. And they were immediately labeled by the Church of England as illegal radical separatists, which tells me that Facebook did exist back then. Because anything that you don't like, you just label it illegal, radical, fascist, separatist, whatever it happens to be. But these people were truly persecuted. Early Reformation Christians were truly persecuted by the church. You couldn't worship together, and you'd lose jobs, and you'd lose family, and all sorts of things. And so they decided, we are going to take this pilgrimage. We're going to take this voyage. And it was pretty rocky, pretty rough. They spent their life savings, this group of Christians, their life savings in order to purchase 2 boats. You've probably heard of at least one of them. One of them was named the Mayflower, and the other one was named the Speedwell. It did not speed well. It sped very poorly. They spend their life savings, and the Speedwell, springs leaks all over the place, and they can't take it. And so eventually what happens is, because they have to combine all of the people from both boats into one boat, they lose their life savings, but they also have to pack everybody, which is around 130 people who were originally going to make this pilgrimage to America. They had to pack about 130 people into a space on one boat that was about 80 feet long by 20 feet wide, which is roughly probably from the back of the room to the front of the room right here. So 130 people in this one middle section right here, and the ceilings were 5 feet tall. Any tall people like me out there struggle with low ceilings? I mean, think of a voyage on a boat where everyone, all of the people, men, women, and children, and animals are packed on this dark and nasty boat. They meant to leave in the summer, meant to leave in August, but they were delayed. They lost the speed well. They all had to pack together. They actually had to leave some people behind. They had to leave family members behind. In fact, there are accounts that say that there was such screeching and howling of families on the docks when they had to leave that it was heart-wrenching because people had to leave family members behind. Still, they stuffed into this boat. They left way later than they wanted to. They left in September because the winds weren't favorable, and they had to go through this whole series of their boat not working out. And so they all combined into this one boat, the Mayflower, and they left in September, and the weather started to turn. So not only do you have too many people in one space, but also it was super cold, winter conditions, moving into fall, and crossing the Atlantic in those sorts of conditions, you have like the perfect scenario for a really horrible time. This is like the early version of packing the family in the minivan and driving to Disneyland. That's what this is like right here. This is an early minivan. So they're drifting. Their mast breaks in a massive storm. There's water coming over into the boat, and you're cramped in this space. It's freezing cold. Everybody is soaking wet. You're losing food. It's just absolutely a madhouse, a serious situation. So these early settlers, they reach Cape Cod on the East Coast in November. It got pretty chilly here pretty quickly in October. I don't know if you've noticed. But this is East Coast in November on a boat where you're wet all the time. They get there and they can see land, right? They're like, yes, we've arrived, we can see shore, but because of the winter conditions, they're trapped on the boat and they can't get off. And so these people are floating out at sea in sight of shore. Do you know how long they were floating out there? Months. They showed up in November and they couldn't disembark until March. They had to wait until spring. Floating, looking at shore. Now, by some miracle, most of them made it alive.